So Saturday was also an extra inning game against the Pirates in which the Cardinals did not take full advantage of their opportunities earlier on in the game. We've heard that story because we just talked about it when it came to Sunday. They were pretty two similar games. The difference being in this one that Jordan Hicks comes into the 10th inning and did not do what Drew Verhagen did, which was limit the damage. No, he very much did not. It was a 2-run home run right out of the gate for Jordan Hicks on Saturday. So I guess you could say he didn't walk the first batter that he faced, which is positive. But Ollie Marmol bringing in Jordan Hicks into a situation that was, we've talked about inherited runners and Jordan Hicks. The fact that those two things really have not historically mixed for the Cardinals this season, and really even going back to last year, that had been the case. So an interesting decision, to say the least, that I know a lot of Cardinals fans were fired up about. People did not like it that Jordan Hicks was the choice there for the 10th inning for the Cardinals. And, it's understandable. Andrew McCutchen takes you deep. That's a 5-3 game. Then it was a triple allowed by Connor Joe, or I should say scored by Connor Joe. And he ends up getting driven in on a base hit. That was Jackie Robinson Day Saturday. So the line score on Jordan Hicks, not too friendly. If you've been watching Cardinals games the last few weeks, you are used to that because it's been a struggle for Hicks, who allowed 2 earned runs. Pardon me. 2 earned runs and 3 total runs in Saturday's game. Obviously, the one that was unearned was the Manfred Man, which is a bummer that it was the case. But if you're the Cardinals, you got to go to somebody in that spot in the 10th. And that's what ultimately Ollie Marmol had to say about it, which is that if you look at everybody that pitched on Friday, and you looked at the guys that had already pitched on Saturday behind Steven Matz, Chris Stratton, and Ryan Helsley, got him to the 10th. And the day before that, Verhagen, everybody in the bullpen essentially had pitched already in that game on Saturday, or had pitched Friday and was unavailable, except for Jordan Hicks and Jesus Cabrera. In that spot in the lineup, they felt it was not a spot that was going to be conducive to success for a left-handed pitcher like Jesus Cabrera. So whether they wanted to or not, it ultimately amounted to the fact that it had to be Jordan Hicks in that situation for the Cardinals. And they understand that the inherited runners thing is a problem, has been a problem for him. But at the end of the day, they didn't want to put a lefty into that spot against McCutchen, which makes sense. And then even I think more right-handed batters were behind him in the lineup. And so they had to go with who was available. The one guy that had not pitched, I need to correct myself a little bit there. Palante had not pitched, but had said before the game to Ollie Marmol that he needed another day due to arm fatigue. And so he just needed one more day. He was not available. They were really trying to stay away from him. And so they go to Jordan Hicks, and it blows up in their face. He gets 1 out, but allows 3 runs, 2 earned, as I mentioned, and the big home run to McCutchen, which busted open the game there, and the Cardinals did not strike in the bottom of the 10th. They lose it 6-3. And there was a lot of consternation about the Hicks situation, which I totally do understand. Like, his ERA for the year is 12.71. He's been bad pretty much every time he's come into a game, and something's got to give. I thought leaving the press box that night that maybe Jordan Hicks would not be on the active roster the next day. He was. I was not at the pregame session this morning, but I can kind of tell you what happened based on what had been reported. And John Denton, if you want to read about it, wrote a good piece with the news updates at MLB.com. And it's titled, Cards Hicks to Work Through Struggles at MLB Level. And basically, the clubhouse opening this morning, and I saw this from Jeff Jones's tweet, was delayed from the time that it was going to be, from the posted time, for the media to go into the clubhouse. And then you talk to Ollie Marmol, and that's kind of the usual order of the morning. They delayed it, and it sounds like the reason for that, according to the story from John, following a lengthy pregame meeting between Jordan Hicks and Cardinals management on Sunday. Marmol says the struggling reliever will be used primarily in low-leverage situations in hopes of helping him regain his past form. That's from John Denton's story. All right, so I guess they were talking it over with Hicks, and that maybe bled over to where you don't want a bunch of media coming in the clubhouse at that time. Makes sense. And so they had that conversation, probably not a comfortable conversation, but there's an interesting angle to this that I don't know what the extent of it was because I wasn't there to ask about it this morning, unfortunately. But a lot of people say, well, send him to AAA and have him work out his issues there rather than basically be a waste of a spot in the bullpen where you know that that's a -1 every day for guys that you need to be able to count on in leverage spots. They're just basically saying right now, we're not going to give those spots to Jordan Hicks, and that does put the bullpen in a bit of a bind. So why not maybe a stint in Memphis to try and work those things out? It's a fair question. And I don't know that this is the answer because, once again, I don't want to act like I was in a meeting or in a media session that I was not there for. But the answer could be related to, or at least the context is relevant, that Jordan Hicks cannot be sent to Memphis without his consent. He's got 5 years of service time, and so he would have to agree to that assignment. It's not like the team can just send him there and without him agreeing that it's something he wants to be on board with. They can't do it. Now, they could DFA him if they were that far gone with Jordan Hicks, but the raw talent is tantalizing, right? The triple digits, the nasty slider when it's working really well, and on Saturday he threw like 7 consecutive sliders, which was kind of a question that would have been interesting to hear from Wilson Contreras. What the reason for that was, I still don't know, because I left the clubhouse before Contreras came in. If he ever did show while the media was eligible to be in there, I don't know. Jordan Hicks did not. We waited around for him for a while, and then we were told by Cardinals PR that they believe he had gone home. So didn't hear from Jordan Hicks, and according to John's story at MLB.com, Hicks was not around pregame either to be available for media. Just, we basically go in the clubhouse and see who we see. It's not like a formal, he made himself unavailable. Nobody saw him, and so he didn't talk to anybody. Makes sense. But, yeah, Hicks, was out of there before anybody could talk to him Saturday. Not sure, again, on Contreras, if that was intentional, if they called 7 straight sliders, if Hicks was shaking him off, kind of what happened there. Kind of harder to tell with PitchCom nowadays. You can't just look at, what fingers they put down and say, oh, okay, that's what it is. You don't really know. So, but it clearly it's a situation where the fastball or the sinker, which is what it really is usually for Jordan Hicks. He does throw a 4-seamer, I believe, but the sinker is the main one. When you hear about the 105, that's what it is. The confidence level in that pitch clearly is not where it has been in the past. And so going to the slider that often ends up hanging one to McCutchen, obviously, I think 86.9 miles per hour. So, yeah, hittable pitch. You leave that over the plate, that bad things are going to happen. And so bad things did happen to Jordan Hicks there. But has that meeting with the Cardinals and with Ollie Marmol, and, the resolution to that is he's going to remain on the active roster, but going to use them in low leverage spots, which Cardinals fans are going, duh, like that's what we've been asking for all this time. But understand that there were the limitations placed on the bullpen with the guys that were unavailable Saturday. And I'm sorry, but it was the right call to use Jordan Hicks over Genesis Cabrera when you're just not going to feed your guy who's, I'm not going to call him a loogie because they don't really do the lefty only guy, but it's like he's there to face lefties primarily. That's what Genesis Cabrera's role typically is from the left side. And so Hicks is the guy, if he's on your roster, he has to be able to pitch in that spot. When nobody else is available, Jordan Hicks has to pitch in that spot. And if you're Ollie Marmol, man, it's how hamstring can I be made into and still be expected to thrive when my starting pitchers aren't getting through 6 innings, and so we're using more of our relievers each day than we wish we'd had to. That leads to those guys getting fatigued, right? They came back from Colorado, and so that definitely plays a part. Miles Michaelis talking about can't really use certain pitches like the curveball, have as much confidence in the curveball out there because of the altitude. And then you come back off of that, and guys, they're going to feel a certain way. Their bodies are going to respond to it, and they want to try to battle through that for sure. But in some cases, you don't want to risk an injury. And so Andre Palante made the decision yesterday to tell him pregame, I think I need one more day and I'll be good to go. And then sure enough, he was good to go and pitched fine and did his job for the Cardinals on Sunday. So it's just kind of a tricky spot to put Ollie Marmol into, and fans instantly jump to Ollie's terrible, all of this stuff. And it's the context, I think, is pretty important there, guys. If literally everybody was unavailable to pitch because they had pitched the day before and threw too much to where they weren't going to back-to-back them this early in the season, or they maybe recently had a back-to-back and, they're trying to give guys bonus days in that situation. And now you've got a guy in Jordan Hicks who they say, yes, he's going to stay on the roster, but can't use him in certain spots. Man, that's tricky to me. And so the thing I'm circling back on is, okay, they cannot send him to AAA without him agreeing to it. Seems to me he didn't agree to it, right? I would have imagined that would have been something that was proposed in that meeting. Hey, Jordan, what do you think about this? We want to send you to work on X, Y, and Z. And he said no. I don't know that that's what happened, But wouldn't it stand to reason if you're the Cardinals, if you're Ollie Marmol, you're going, what use is a guy to me that can't pitch in the leverage spots when I have half my guys on a given day that aren't going to be available because they're pitching so much to try and cover for the starters? It's a tricky spot for a manager to be in. So I don't know. If you're listening to this, hopefully you're not among the fans that are just like, oh my gosh, Ollie is the worst for bringing in Jordan Hicks. Like, if Jordan Hicks is on this team, he should be used in those situations, especially when you have the circumstances of the rest of the bullpen unavailable in those spots. So I'm totally on Ollie's behalf saying that was not an Ollie Marmol problem. It was eventually, shouldn't Jordan Hicks be expected to get outs problem. I know the inherited runners has been a problem, and it's not a new problem. And so by this point, the Cardinals should recognize to try to give him clean innings, and that'll be for the better of the pitcher and for the better of the team. Totally understand that. But there are limitations when you've got it doesn't all happen in a vacuum. That's the best way to put it. It doesn't all happen in a vacuum. And so they needed Hicks to be able to come into that spot and do what he could do. What he could do was, again, not be able to retire the first batter of an outing, which he's had, 6 or 7 outings, whatever it's been this year. I'm not sure he's done it once. I think maybe one time he did retire the first batter, but other than that, it's been a lot of walks, and now you can add the home run to the ledger. So it's a difficult spot for the Cardinals to be in, but what they're going to do right now is keep him at the big league level. And it may be because he said, I don't want to go to the minors. And again, they cannot send him there unless he agrees to it. And so if the player says, I don't want to do it, you've got 2 options as a team. You can keep him on your active roster and try and work through this, which is what they're doing, or you can DFA and then trade him. And I think they would probably be able to get somebody to bite on a trade, but the obvious desperation of the Cardinals to be in that spot would be such that I don't think you would have like a big get coming in for a Jordan Hicks trade. Not right now with where things are at. So best case scenario for the Cardinals is that he does figure it out in the low leverage that they're going to put him into, and then he works his way back into being a reliable, trusted reliever in some of the tougher high leverage spots. But like I said, I don't know if he refused, if they asked him and he refused in terms of the assignment. I wasn't there for that conversation, so I cannot pretend to be. But I do think it's interesting that it would have seemed like an obvious spot to maybe offer that up and say, hey, could it be something that you'd be open to? Don't know if that was asked. Don't know ultimately if it ended up that he had a chance to respond to that either way. But the moral of the story is Jordan Hicks is going to remain on the roster, and the Cardinals could really use him. They could really use a guy of his talent level to be able to pitch to his capabilities and return as one of those prominent right-handed relievers in the bullpen. For now, I'd say you're going to see a lot more of guys like Drew Verhagen in those spots like you did today in the 10th inning. He came in and totally did his job. Like the fact that the run scored, nothing you can do about that. It was an inherited runner. He had 3 ground outs, weak contact, all on the ground. Very much what you're looking for out of Drew Verhagen. So positivity in that regard for the Cardinals. The Hicks stuff, though, that's really the main thing I was going to get into from Saturday. Try to not dwell on the minutia of a game that the Cardinals lost there 2 days after it happened. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a grind. Like, this is all the more reason that the Cardinals need more out of their starting pitchers, get deeper into games so that they can help the bullpen not be overtaxed, because they're overtaxed and it's mid-April. It's not like we're talking about this and it's August and you go, yeah, it's been a long season for those guys. Nah, man, it's April still. And now, 7 of the 8 relievers I think are going to be available when it comes to leverage. And I would say this, they already haven't really used Chris Stratton in those leverage spots, right? He's more of the middle relief guy. And so you're looking at Helsley, who has historically, needed an extra day here and there. They try to keep him healthy. Gallegos, who has been the rubber band arm and has really not been hurt in a while, knock on wood. So they're going to hope that he's able to be good to go. And when I say hurt, like IL stint, long-term injury, I know he had the little back thing that flared up at the beginning of the year, but Gio looks good right now. Verhagen looks good right now. It's kind of like Gio, Verhagen, and Helsley are your 3 go-tos from the right side. And Zach Thompson can do anything and get anybody out because he's just been fantastic. 4 more outs on Sunday for Zach Thompson. But yeah, I mean, you're limited if you're Ollie Marmol, man. I think it is a little bit of a tricky spot for him to be in with this Jordan Hicks thing. I don't know how it came to be that they decided that. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you it's one way when I don't know that to be true for a fact. But I do think it's interesting to talk about because it is going to put the Cardinals into a bind if he's not able to work his way back into his typical sense pretty quickly. Now, you might, as a Cardinals fan, say, this is better because it's what they already should have done, whether they needed to have a meeting about it or not. You can't put this guy into leverage because he is just he's getting shelled every time he goes out there, or he's missing the strike zone to where he needs to come in, have somebody rescue him. Whatever the case is, it's been a struggle for Hicks. the Cardinals could really use him getting better.